Okay, we talked about a lot of different things. We talked about how your dog reacts with pressure. We told you about how pressure is a big influence on how the dog behaves, why the dog uh, cracks under pressure with the fuses. We've talked about a few foundational steps of how we begin in training. And we've also talked about pitfalls that people do in training when they have a dog that reacts. So we're going to go off on one of those parts of the problems that people have, and that is that they don't understand the triggers. They understand that the dog's going from here and then going into a trouble zone of stress and then going crazy. They know they got to get the dog out of the situation, but then they don't know how to make this easier. So this is a step of understanding what makes your dog flip and flip the fuse and pop it. It's understanding what is the true trigger and how the triggers work. Why does your dog react? So I have people call me and they tell me my dog's scared of people or noises or movement or dogs. There's other things, but usually those are the norms. And my comment back to them after that is, okay, can you give me more information? And they're like, no, they just don't like dogs. They don't like dogs. And I'm like, well, I'll need to see your dog, or I'll need to see your dog with people, or with dogs, or with noise or movement, so I can kind of get an idea of what really the true trigger is. Because your dog doesn't have problems with every single variable of each of these categories. There's actually parts of those parts of those things in there. They're actually the true triggers. So to explain how this works in human terms, it's like you coming and saying you want to come for dinner, and I say sure, and then you say where do you live, and I say I live in Earth, which is a true comment. I'm not being lying to you because I do live in Earth, but it's very vague. It's like, okay, well, if I have to be there by 6 o'clock, it takes days to travel on an airplane from here to here. I don't think I'm going to be able to, you're going to be able to find me. So then you ask me, okay, well, what after that? And then I say, well, I live on the West Hemisphere. So that means I'm somewhere over here. And I get rid of all this information. But still, that's a lot of land to cover. And then I can sit there and say, well, I live in the U.S. I live in North America continent. Well, that means that I'm somewhere here. So I eliminated the way up here and the way down here. And so then I sit there and I say, okay, I live in the USA. So then I'm just helped you out with like this much. And then from there, I go ahead and tell you I live in the West. Again, that only cuts down this much. So, and then I tell you that I live in California, or I live by the coastal. So then that eliminates everything but that. You see how this is becoming harder and harder and harder the more vague you are. And then I say I live in California, then I live in Southern California, then it's just SoCal, and then I live in Riverside County, and then it's just a lot of information. But if I had that information, it helps me pinpoint where the problem is. So that is what we need to do with the dogs. So when you have a problem with dogs, it's never ever that you have problems with every single dog. And sometimes it may not even be that you have a problem with the dog. Just like with people, you have, my dog hates people. It may not even be people. It might be the variables that people bring with it, or what dogs bring with it, or what the noise brings with it. It's never ever just so vague. So you have to understand what the triggers are. So this is going to be a short video, but here we go. When you look at this, this is only like a small portion of what could be variables in understanding what is going on. So when you're looking at the dogs, down here you have breeds. So, and the reason for that is sometimes your dog has issues with a past attack with a dog that looks like a boxer. So anything that looks like a boxer brings back flashbacks. Or maybe your dog has never seen a Dobie and doesn't understand that a Dobie crashes into people because that's fun, because that's how Dobies play, and they don't get it. Or a bulldog that does that which in his breed, it sounds like aggression. Um, it might be just how they work. Herding dogs like to do a lot more cutting. They like going over the backs more. You have different breed characteristics. You have sizes. Does your dog have a problem because of size? Is it big dogs that scare the dog? Is it small dogs that scares your dog? Appearance. Again, with pointy noses, flat faces, blockheads. You have appearances that may have triggered something there. You have the smell. Smell triggers things too. You have sound going with the breathing and stuff. You also have the speed that the dogs are running with. Are the problems happening when the dogs are running and playing? Is the problem happening when they're in drive? Pack placement is a problem because the dog doesn't like to be around dogs who have alpha issues, or dogs that are very shy or are on the bottom of the rack. Are they triggering on dogs who are very confident or not confident? Are they reacting to how the dogs play? And then also the other thing that works in it is what type of equipment do you have on the dog? Do you have a harness? Do you have a flat collar? Do you have a pinch? Do you have a choke chain? Do you have a harness? Do you have a regular leash? Do you have a chain? Do you have one of those expandable flexi leashes? Those all make important things in determining what is really going on with your dog when it has fear of dogs. You also have the environment. Things in the environment are actually feeding the energy in the atmosphere and feeding your dog's anxieties. So it may not even be the dogs, it may be the environment that you're in that's making it too hard for the dog to focus. So he's taking that energy and focusing it on a dog, which goes into the energy of the room, energy around, what's going on. Are kids screaming? Are kids running around? Are bikes going around? It has to do with all those things. Personal space. Is the dog getting enough personal space? Where is the dogs coming? Are they coming from the front? Are they coming from the behind? Coming from the side? We'll talk about personal space. That's a whole different thing. And then we also have owner reaction. Every time do you see a dog, do you go, oh my gosh, there's a dog? Are you feeding the dog? Are you sitting there and having, oh, it's a pit bull. Oh my gosh. Oh, I have opinion about pit bulls, or I have opinion about Rottweilers. I have opinion about Chihuahuas. These are all variables, and so many more. There's so many more that actually will determine and kind of pinpoint where you need to fix with the dog. So if you're looking at the dog and you're having a problem with like a certain breed or a certain appearance, and you're working on all this blindly, you could be actually making the problem bigger. So when you're looking at understanding triggers, you want to understand why. Just like with people, I have people come in and they tell me that their dogs don't like people. So my thing is I want to know why. Is it the language? Some people talk very softly and sweet. Some people have more of a harsh voice. Is that getting it? Is there the tone? Is there the squeaky voice or the manly voice? Then you have men. Is it older men, younger men, larger men, smaller men? And women. Is it larger women, bigger women? Are they louder? Are they more movement with their hands? Seniors is a certain age. Children, certain age. Costumes is because the dog is having problems. Is there a problem with costumes, hats, accessories? Is something triggering the dog that doesn't like it? And speed, the speed of the situation. How fast are people moving around it? How fast is the dog moving? How fast are things moving around it? How is the approach happening? Is personal space being involved? Position and movement, the sounds that are going around the people, the smell that people have, the objects that people have, the objects around people. Are they in the building? Are they in a hallway? Are they doing with echoes? Are they doing with, there's so many things. Environment, is there construction going around? Is the neighbors putting in a new deck? Are they putting a pool in? Is there planes going overhead? Personal space, is a dog being pushed into a corner? Is it getting enough space? Is it people coming behind it, coming beside of it? Is it coming on its dominant side or its weak side? And again, equipment. What do you have on the dog? What are you have collar, leashes, equipment? Do you have crates, barriers? These are all things. And then again, owner reaction. Every time the dog sees a person, is the owner jumping up and going, oh, is that person safer? Oh, don't touch them, or all variables. So when somebody comes to me and they say that they have dog has problems with people, there may be a thing that it may only be personal space, and it may only be how it's approached, and that's it. And everything else that's on this list is a complete waste of time. That if you actually work on these couple things, it'll fix the dog. Same thing with the dogs that fear dogs. Sometimes it's just speed, drive, and pack placement, and that's it. It isn't the breed of the size of the dog, the breed of the dog, the appearance, the smell, or the sound. It has to do with the speed, the drive, and the placement. Sometimes it has to do with the appearance. I've had dogs that have issues with bulldogs or dobies, and it has nothing to do other than it's something they've never seen before, and they have to have it translated for them. Sometimes it's the environment. Sometimes a dog will have environment, the energy, and pack placement, and drive, and speed, and it has nothing to do with what breed of dog or dogs in total. So you have to just kind of figure out what's the true source behind the problem. Just like when you go in objects and placements, what are the sounds that's going on, the tones and the movement. What type of movement's going around? Are there kids running around? Are there bikes running around? Are there cars running around? How fast are you moving? How fast is a dog moving? Is there wind? Is there leaves? Is there branches moving? How about shadows? How are the shadows there? Is there a lot of shadows? No shadows? Is it dark? Is it light? What type is the vegetation? Is there a lot of leaves, a lot of sticks? Has a dog been put in rattlesnake training? There's a lot of variables in there. People goes into all this. What is the people involvement going around these objects and kids? Dogs may be scared of something, but it might be because they originally saw that thing because kids or bikes or something was going on. Is there dogs? Is dogs being a problem as far as them having issues? Echoes. Again, personal space, equipment we have on the dog owner's reaction, position of the problem, and the speed. And then you have with the sounds. And sounds is like tone, and then you have the speed that's going around those sounds. You have the tones. You have silence, and then noise. That's kind of suspense. You have the sounds that are there dogs around it? Are there people around the sounds? Are there cars around the sound? Is there movement? Is there shadows? Is there echoes? How's the dog's personal space? The suspense, is it coming and then going? Are you working it up and with your own owner's reaction, starting to get, oh my gosh, we're getting closer, and then we run away. What type of equipment do you have on the dog? Do you have choke chains, flat collars, harnesses, regular leashes, bungee leashes, scrunchy leashes, and then the structures. What are the structures that are around the sound? These are all variables that give me hints of how to fix the problem. So when you're looking at a problem, you want to just kind of go down the list and you say, okay, well, you have problems with dogs. And so what I do is I just go down a list of like 100 things in my head, and I just kind of go, all right, well, you have a problem with this, check, and you have a problem with this, yes, and you have a problem with this, yes.
Time to plan dinner.
And you have a problem with this, and a problem with this, and this is a problem, and maybe this is a problem. And then what I do is I don't take every single thing at one time. I sit there and say, okay, well, which is the easiest one for me to fix? Or which one will be the biggest problem that helps everything else? So usually what I do with that, in this case, is I work with speed 1. And then next I would probably work with energy. And then I would just go down and I would just take one at a time until I can get every single thing. And when I get every single thing done separately, I smack them together. And by that time, I don't have any problems. Same with people. I don't sit there and try and get the dog to like men, women, children, this and that. I kind of look at what's the more bigger problem. Bigger problem might be how the approach and the personal space and the equipment. And so what I do is I work with those 3 first. When I fix those 3, then I look at what's the next crucial thing that I have to work on. Well, then I need to work on environment, and then I need to work on objects, and then I need to work on sound, and then I work with those. I kind of tear it apart as many little pieces as possible so that it's easier for the dog to digest, and it's also easier for me to show the dog how to successfully and I go through this, because if the dog has all these things that he's scared of, and I try and take them all at one time, that's like you trying to take on the whole world at one time by yourself. It's much easier to pick a fight, and I go down the list and I decide which is the easiest for me or the dog, and I pinpoint it. And once when I make that accomplishment, it's mine, and then I start adding more. Same with everything else. Is if I have a dog who's scared of things, and let's just say the dog is scared of dog, people, objects, and sounds, well, then what I do with that is I look at this and I say, okay, what is the one thing that's common with all of these? And then what's common with all these is probably energy, and there's energy in all of them, but the energy, and then I'd work on speed, 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 energy, and that would be my first thing that I work on. Because even though I'm not working on one particular problem, I'm working on a variable that's in every single problem, and I claim that as my own. And then when I have that, then I can go ahead and I can scratch that off my list and say, okay, I've got that done. All right, so then when we got that done, then I can go ahead and start working with environment. And then I can start picking out little soup things in each one. But that's how I work with triggers. People always get caught up in wanting when to fix people, and they go and force their dog to work with all these things at once, and then that's just a recipe for destruction. If you got a problem with children, then you figure out how to break that into the smallest pieces as possible. So when we go on to this page, if a person has problems with dogs, then I try and figure out what is it. Is it the speed? Is it the drive? Is it the pack order? And then I kind of look at that and I say, okay, well, if that's the problem, then the first thing I need to work with is probably speed, and eliminate everything else. Because if I can get the dog used to speed, then I can get him used to drive. And if I can get him used to drive, I can get him used to everything else that's in that problem. So the same thing when you have people. If the dog is scared of men, then you just start looking at what age, and then what they're wearing, and then how they speak, the tones, the movement. And then I look at those, and when I find something that I can work with, I forget about everything else and I work with one. Or movement, sorry. Speaking and tones, I work on one. And when I get that one good, then I work on the next one. And that's more the crucial point when you're trying to figure out triggers, is you just do not try and sit there and tell your dog and yourself and everybody that you live on Earth. You try to be as specific and as detailed as you can so that you can pinpoint the problem and you can fix it.